Now today it is time for me to chat to the eRadio voice. A lot of our listeners in the past here have said the eRadio voice isn't real. It's just a computer generated voice with no emotions whatsoever. Today we're proving you wrong. We're chatting to the eRadio voice live from the UK. How's it going, eRadio voice?
Hello, you're listening to eRadio. Yeah, I am real.
No, maybe, how do we know that you are actually real? Because maybe I just typed that into the computer for it to say I'm real. Maybe you must cough.
There you go.
Well, hopefully
you've been doing a lot of that recently, haven't you, Leon, with the corona?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully the eRadio voice doesn't have corona, because, I mean, we can't risk damaging that voice. I mean, that would be absolutely tragic.
I don't know what you love so much about my voice. I don't know what it is.
You've got an absolutely great voice. Let's go back in time. Okay, I think it was July, it was August last year, 2020, one of the worst years known to mankind, and then 2021 came along. But anyway, I was going through this voice bank. I was voice hunting, so to speak, looking for that actual voice. And, you know, I think that's one of the most difficult things to do, because you have this concept, you have this idea in your mind, and you need to find the voice that actually fits and really fits that profile. And the only way to do so is to listen to a lot of voices, and then once you hear the voice that you like, you can say, hey, I like that voice. So I went to a lot of voice banks online, and I was listening to all these voices, and then I especially like the UK accent and the UK voices, and then I stumbled upon some kind of voice bank. You can't even remember the name now. And I was like, yep, that's it. That's the voice. That is the voice. And then there was an option to send a message to the voice directly. And as they say, the rest is history. What do you remember?
I remember logging into my account on the voice bank thing, and because obviously every time I get a email, I get an email every time I get a message on the site. So I thought, right, someone sent me an order. I thought, okay. And it said South Africa, and I thought, wow, that's a couple of miles away. I thought, well, we're nowhere near South Africa. Why would they want a British voice? and I saw it and I thought, Eon, Now, over here in the United Kingdom, Eon is a electricity and gas supplier.
Oh, my word.
It's actually a company called Eon, and it's an electricity and gas supplier.
I am the light in your life.
Honestly, every time I get a letter or I see an advert for Eon, I think Eon from eRadio.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. I thought the only Eon reference would be like a really long time, because when somebody says, I haven't seen you in eons, that means a really long time that you can't measure. I didn't know it was actually an electricity company.
Yeah, it's an electricity company. If we say something like I haven't seen you in, it wouldn't be eons, it'd be I've not seen you in yonks.
Oh, yonks, okay.
With a Y. Okay. Yeah, so we'd say that a lot.
We're making fun of each other's accents. The eRadio voice actually made fun of the South African accent earlier. He sounded like an exact copy of Michael McIntyre.
Yes. Hello, everybody, it's Michael McIntyre.
That's a crazy guy. I love him, but he's so funny. But you shouldn't watch too much of his stuff, because then can't have too much of Michael McIntyre.
Yeah, you get a little bit Michael'd out after a while.
Yeah, which is normal.
It's good to. I mean, I was quite sad to hear of the passing of Sean Locke, who was off out of 8 out of 10 cats, who died the other night. He had cancer, bless him. He was a really funny guy, but I'm very much, my humour's very dark, so I like the dark stuff. But Michael McIntyre is very much a traditional British humour, which is also a big favourite of mine.
Now, eRadio Voice, tell us, what do you do for a day job? Do you just do voiceovers, or are you also involved in radio as a job?
I'm actually involved in radio as well. I work at a radio station in York, in the United Kingdom. It's not New York, but it's what we call York, Old York, if you like. And it's a very historic city, so I have a lot of fun doing radio around here. I also work in Sheffield and Rotherham at a radio station over there, but it's obviously, as we'll know, the radio magicians wave their magic wand, and for some reason I can happen to do a show from my house in York to Sheffield.
Exactly.
You know what that's all about. Nobody else does. So the radio fairies transport my voice to Sheffield, just like the radio fairies transport my voice to South Africa. And incredible. I also do some stuff on an online network as well, which is across the UK, and I run the digital marketing company as well. So I'm very, very busy. But
busy man.
I love doing some stuff for eRadio.
Yes, and we love having your voice on eRadio. It's incredible. And
thank you.
I couldn't think of a better voice. As I said, you just know when you find the right. It's almost like finding the right piece of music to go with an advert. And sometimes it's so difficult.
I suppose it's a bit like falling in love. You date a few people. If you kind of find the right person eventually. And that's not happened for me yet, though.
Yeah, same here. Oh my word. But anyway, let's somebody wanted to know, I'm thinking of all the questions I've had over the past year. They'll come to me as we go along. Somebody asked me if the eRadio Voice is mature or if it's young, because they can't really say. Are we going to tell them the age of the eRadio Voice, or is that also a mystery?
I am 22.
No, that obviously isn't true. Try again.
Absolutely 100 million % it is true. I'm 23 on the 24th of next month.
So now we know that the eRadio Voice is 22. That means you were born in, 1999?
98.
98. You're sorry, my math's not very great. That's why I work in radio. Yo, that's fantastic. Okay, and where do you live in the UK, the eRadio Voice?
So I live in York, which is in a lovely county called Yorkshire. It's the biggest county. In fact, my part of the county of Yorkshire is North Yorkshire, so I have a very welcoming voice type thing. Yeah. If you go to West Yorkshire, you tend to get West Yorkshire, they all talk very, very like that. Hey up, how's it going? It's all very here and there and everywhere. Nobody, and I don't even think half of South Africa would even understand a West Yorkshire bloke, because they're just they sound completely different. But I'm in York. I live in North Yorkshire. North Yorkshire is the biggest county in the UK, and it's right in the north, sort of to the east, the sort of northeast area. And I'm 2 hours away from London.
Okay, well that's quite close.
Miles away.
2 hours. That's not bad.
Yeah, on the train, 230 miles in the car. Yeah, I tend to. My brother's actually going to university in London, so I will be spending a lot of time there. But I will tell you a little secret of mine. I have never, ever, ever, ever been to London in my life.
Word? Then I obviously wouldn't ask you now, because that my next question would be, have you ever been to South Africa? But obviously not, if you haven't even been to London.
No, I haven't. Do you know what? I haven't, and I would. That's one of the places I would love to go. I would love to go to South Africa. I'd love to go to parts of Africa as well. My friend's currently in Kenya at the moment, and he said it's the most beautiful place you could ever set eyes on. So I'd love to go to the continent itself in that is Africa, and I'd love to go to South Africa, because I've heard the people are quite friendly.
We are very friendly. And is there a specific place that you want to go to in South Africa, like for example Cape Town? Have you heard of Cape Town?
Cape Town, yeah, that'd probably be at the top of the list, yeah. But then again, my geography on South Africa is not very good, so please pardon my ignorance.
But Cape Town's more like where the city meets the ocean. I think that's what makes it so special. And then obviously we are broadcasting from the Garden Route. I don't know if you're familiar with the Garden Route. That's just a little bit. I have
heard of the Garden Route. Yeah.
Obviously, in your recording script, yes.
Yeah, obviously, of course. every time. Live from the Dublin route in South Africa, this is eRadio.
Yeah, there we go. So obviously...
I am real, you know.
Totally. If there was ever any doubt, I'm sure that it's completely out the window now. But eRadio Voice, I also wanted to say to you, the Garden, it's like a 6 to 7 hour drive if you drive according to the road rules from Cape Town.
Wow.
From Cape Town, so it's quite a distance, but that's by car, obviously, and you can't take the train. By plane, it would be an hour or two, and then you're here
right.
Between Cape Town and.
So how long would it take you to walk?
Oh my word! If it's me, it will probably be years.
I'm a slow walker as well.
Yes, and I'm incredibly unfit, and even more so after coronavirus. Totally screwed me up. Has the eRadio Voice has it had its jabs yet, or does it have COVID? Has it had COVID yet?
I've not had COVID, thankfully.
Yeah.
I've had both my jabs. I had AstraZeneca jabs, which in the United Kingdom, for people aged 18 to 25, I think it is, are now prohibited. You're not allowed to have the AstraZeneca, but I had them way before people started getting blood clots and all these different side effects. So I had mine, and to this day, touch wood, I've not had any side effects to my jabs. They've all been perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So I'm quite thankful for that, really, and I'm glad that, because I've actually got an underactive thyroid, so I was in sort of bumped up in place to get the jab, which was I was quite happy about. So I went and got my jab. The lovely ladies there did the jab for me, and do you know what? I didn't feel a thing. And usually with blood tests, and I'm a bit squeamish about that sort of thing, blood tests and needles in general, I'm a bit no. But when I went to do it, I just literally looked away, and then I was there, and I was like, "Have you done it yet?" And she went, "Oh, we've done it. We did it 10 seconds ago." I was like, "Is it what? I didn't even feel it.
Didn't even feel it. Yeah.
Done."
Right, let's move on a little bit, and I'll ask you now, what is your favorite dish? What is your favorite food? Do you like a pizza or a pasta?
Oh, Eon, that is a tricky one. You put me on the spot here. Pizza or pasta?
No pressure.
Probably pizza.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, if I had to choose, I would do the same. Yeah, pizza, definitely.
Oh, the question is, we always have in the UK at the moment, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Is that the question at the moment? My answer is no. I say no.
Well, I'm going to hang up this call now, and I'm going to bed. Good night.
So you obviously like pineapple on pizza.
Of course it does. You put anything on pizza.
Do you know what the thing that really gets to me is when the pineapple is warm. I just don't like the pineapple being warm and all.
Yeah, I'm complete opposite. I don't like it when it's cold.
Oh my word! How crazy! It takes all sorts to make the world go around, right?
Absolutely. And if that does mean some really serious virus, if anything, I think this virus has actually brought a lot of people closer together, because without sounding like a complete idiot, because obviously we've all had to stay 2 meters apart and all that, so it hasn't necessarily brought us physically closer together. Exactly. But in terms of, we're so lucky to have Zoom and WhatsApp and all these different forms of technology, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all that, because we can keep in touch with people and we can have video face-to-face calls with people, and I don't think I'd have got through the lockdown without that. To be honest, I don't think a lot of people would have got through the lockdown without that. Could you imagine being back in the 1940s? You know, where if there wasn't the war, there was the virus, and you know, we would be stuck indoors all day. The minute they're saying here in the UK that apparently there's been more babies delivered in hospitals than there has in the last within the last sort of year and a half, 2 years, than there has in the last sort of 5 years, because everybody's popping babies out left, right, and centre.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now I want to ask you about your radio career. What was the most embarrassing moment on air for you? I'm sure there've been quite a few, and let's be honest, it's an absolute nightmare when something goes wrong technically and you have no control over it. But what would you say is your most embarrassing moment on the air?
Quite possibly when the fire alarm went off. I worked at a radio station in Lancashire, in Preston. It's called City B. It's no longer in existence. I can't call it that. And basically, I was in the studio 2, because studio 2 was our on-air studio for that sort of month, because our other studio 1 was getting rebuilt. So we was in studio 2. We had this horrible old Soundcraft desk that no one really knew how to use apart from me, and we were all sat there, and I was halfway through a link, which obviously we know as the talky bit between the songs, and I was chatting away, and all of a sudden, I was like, oh no.
Oh, that's bad.
So I was. And it was very awkward because I am a bit of a swearer. I do like my bad language sometimes. I do often come out with my random bad language outbursts. And it was very, very difficult not to swear at that moment when it went off, because the fire alarm was right in the studio. It was in the studio. It was weird. It was in the studio and it was alarmed. It didn't have it wasn't a light that flashed like in most commercial stations. It was a full-on wailing alarm, and the studio was about. I think it was about 6 by 8 foot, so it was very, very small, and so we had to sort of sit there, and we were sat there presenting the show, and all of a sudden off it went, and it was a moment like that. So yeah, it was eventful. It was interesting. Let's put it that way. And we still didn't even leave the building. We still stayed on air. We just left. So it's just a test. We get a test every Tuesday. It's fine. It's just a test. And it only went off for about 10 seconds, I think.
But it felt like an eternity.
It was. It was the most awkward, weirdest moment of my life.
Yes, the thing about radio is that when something like that happens, you're never prepared for it. You think you are, but there's always a surprising element to it, and you're not prepared for it, and then it just feels like an eternity. Try and
absolutely.
Get out of it, There's always something that's going to come and pounce.
And being live on air, live on air is the toughest one, to be honest. I mean, I've been in the industry since I was 12 years old, starting out on an internet station, and then all of a sudden blossoming into community and commercial radio. So I was when I was first on air, I remember lots of different people being around, and the one thing that still puts me off to this day is having a program director sitting right next to you while you do your links live on air. That's the most annoying, first and foremost annoying, and also the most awkward, uncomfortable thing you could possibly do. It's sit there and listening to yourself talk on the radio with your boss sat next to you, basically.
That is absolutely awful. I really, really don't like that. I would just resign immediately, because not only are you nervous, I feel radio is such an intimate medium, and It's you and your listeners, and now this man sitting here, and they're probably judging and commenting on what you're saying, and no, you shouldn't do it like that. I mean, it's fine if it's training for a day or so, but sitting there all the time, no.
Oh no! I mean, he came in once in a very long while. Really, it was at the start of it. I was 16 years old, so I was sort of not even trusted near the airwaves. So I was sat there, and having to produce a 3-hour show in front of him was quite a challenge. But it makes you better. Makes you better on air. Makes you better equipped for live shows and stuff. And it's a wonderful thing. Radio is a wonderful medium, and voiceovers is even better, because obviously the reason I agreed to come and do this chat with you on air is because it is you hear the presenters, you hear Eon on the radio, you hear all the other guys on the radio, Kane and all that guys, you hear everybody on the radio, but you never hear the voiceover unless it's talking in between the songs and sweeping in between the songs.
Exactly.
So it's quite nice to be invited onto a station. A great station it is as well. It's lovely to be invited on to sit here and talk about it, because I am a human being as well as the robotic voice.
Yeah, I don't know why, but look, you get these websites nowadays, and they kind of steal the jobs from the voiceover artists, because you just type stuff in and they almost sound human. I can still tell they're robotic, but they say, hey, we've got a bank of human-like voices, and it's scary, but they still don't have that diction and that human factor. So, I mean, obviously a lot of voice artists are completely pissed because, I mean, look at, they won't be happy with that, stealing their jobs. But how do you feel about something like that?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily make much difference to me. I mean, I know there's still people that want a charm to their voiceovers. There's people that want some sort of, there's a lot more to voiceovers than meets the eye. It's not just about the thank you for calling XYZ company. It's more a situation where it's character voices and impressions of things, and the other week I had a voiceover for a commercial for a carry-on film type commercial, and you can't get the AI, artificial intelligence things to do matron, something like that.
Yeah, they don't have that human. I know exactly what you mean. You can try all you want. Those robots can't do that. I mean, robots are taking over all over. I mean, just the other day on Tech Thursday, we spoke about shops without cashiers or tills or anything. No queues. You just walk out. It's all AI, which is a bit scary.
7 years ago, when I was at school and I was doing my what we know as a general certificate of education, secondary education, GCSEs they call them, and I was in my IT class and was about to sit an exam. We had to write an essay all about artificial intelligence, and back then it literally was. We was aware of robots. We knew what robots were doing. We knew they were kind of, all at the Amazon depots and stuff like that. They were doing stuff and conveyor belts and stuff. Chocolates, obviously York, where I live here, is a chocolate city. We've had I think we've had 3 or 4 chocolate factories in the time York's been around.
Wow.
And a lot of my family and a lot of my friends and my family friends have all worked in the chocolate factories picking and packing, and they've all sort of done that sort of work. And nowadays robots are taking over and doing it. But 7 years ago, 10 years ago even, not many people were aware of how advanced technology would get. The smart speaker is definitely the one that's blown my mind over the course of the last decade or so. I mean, 10 years ago we didn't have that. We had we didn't even think we'd have that in years to come. And I do think that, part of me thinks in years to come there will be flying cars and, robots will be doing your shopping for you. And I think robots will be quite helpful for disabled people as well, actually. I think people that aren't able to get in and around the house, older people, disabled people in wheelchairs, that kind of thing. I think that, there'll be a robot to push your wheelchair around, or there'll be a robot to go and get you some things out of the kitchen, and I think all that will be through artificial intelligence. It might even be Alexa, might even become a person in 10 years from now.
Oh my word.
But I do completely agree. I mean, Tech Thursday, I think you're spot on. You are spot on with the way technology is moving at the moment. It's going very, very quickly, very, very quickly, and we need to keep up with it, I think. And I think it's quite invasive as well, in a sense. I was on Facebook the other day and I was having a chat. Who was I having a chat with? I was having a chat with someone about sliding doors. And I went on and I finished the conversation and I went to my car and I sat in my car before I set off and I went to put my music on Spotify, and I just thought I'll have a quick look on Facebook. Facebook came up, sponsored advert, sliding doors. I thought, what?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
We spoke about it the other day. It's insane. It's very invasive. You're so right.
And it's all about targeted advertising. That's what it is. Targeted advertising. Completely nuts, but it's just how I think that is the way tech is going at the minute. And there is a lot of money in it. There is a lot of money in that industry.
Yeah. No, they're listening to us all day and all night, which is definitely a little bit scary. If your device is connected to the internet, somehow they are listening to you. But that also brings me to a point that I was thinking of right now. Would you also agree that the pandemic accelerated technology and how advanced technology is, and kind of forced a lot of people to adapt and take on new approaches and use technology in ways to move forward?
I think it did. Yes. I mean, I'd never heard of Zoom until around April time of 2020. So I was sort of like, oh, what's this Zoom thing, And I never really used it until just before Christmas in 2020. So I found it quite interesting to see how a lot of my older relatives had joined Facebook, and also a lot of my friends that are my colleagues as well in the industry that were now doing radio shows from home, from their living room.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, I mean, geeks like us, Eon, we have home studios and setups and stuff like that, don't we? But whereas if you're just a standard stand-in presenter, or you've got a radio show on a radio station every day, and you live round the corner from the radio studio, you don't really see the need to have a home studio. Whereas and that's how a lot of people I know in the industry sort of live. And during the lockdowns and stuff, they've had, obviously, co-hosts have joined via Zoom, or they've joined via Teams, and a lot of people have done breakfast shows at 6:10 in the morning from their living room with a cup of coffee and access to radio automation software through a web browser. So I've seen, definitely it's been revolutionary, the change in tech over the last sort of 18 months, and I think this is just the start of how we're going to revolutionize tech. Revolutionize tech over the next sort of year and a half, maybe 2 years in front of us. So I do think, definitely it's definitely. I'm amazed at how it's changed and how people, especially older people, have adapted to it.
Do you feel the same way about internet radio and the growth of internet radio in the past year or two, especially in the pandemic, where more people are streaming?
I'm a radio station, an internet station, and I actually co-run the radio station, and I manage the stats a lot. And when I went to the control panel and I looked at the stats during the first lockdown, we were reaching a massive, massive peak. And I saw the stats all of a sudden just go from, they were in double figures every hour or so, and then they dip down, they dip back up again. We're looking 40, 50. At one point, I was looking at 110. I was thinking, what is going? And this was at any one time. I was thinking, what is going on here? And I assessed the situation around me. I thought, everybody's at home, everybody's stuck in. And I thought, with the landscape of internet radio compared to how it was when I was 12 years old, back in 2011, and when I started here on a podcasting website, we had to go on our Windows XP machine, www. and then a big URL, and listen to it that way. You had to have Flash Player. That was another one.
Exactly. Yeah, that was terrible.
And, there was no such thing as groups on messenger groups or anything like that. There was no such thing as rooms on Facebook or anything like that. To be honest, I don't even think Messenger was around at that time. So it was a chore. It was a chore for a lot of people to listen, and that's where it struggled a lot. Fast forward 10 years, 2021. You've got smart speakers, you've got all sorts of different ways of technology of listening. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. These people, and back 10 years ago, we didn't have. I think we was on 3G, 2G, 3G mobile data. not many people could listen for long because they'd only have a gigabyte of data. They didn't want to use that for the whole month of their subscription to their contract, and I completely understood that. And it was a bit of a kick in the teeth, really, for internet stations.
Exactly.
But the way I see it is the smart speakers and the allowances in data roaming and data itself being something that's quite, I've got unlimited data on my phone for a very, very reasonable working price, and I can listen to internet radio all day. And some new cars have got the Bluetooth and stuff like that. You can even get the little adapters for the old cars and stuff. Smart speakers, everything. Honestly, I could go on about it all night, Eon. There is absolutely loads of ways to listen now, whereas if 10 years ago there wasn't. And I think that's revolutionary.
Absolutely.
And I keep saying revolutionary, I don't know why.
But it is. That's exactly it. And also, I mean, then AAC and AAC Plus came along. These are new formats that we didn't have back then, where you still get pure quality and it still sounds good, but it doesn't use a lot of data. And I think that's also one thing we didn't have back then, because you were streaming in different qualities and bit rates just to get a decent sound. And then AAC came along, and that really helped a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I used to stream in 128 MP3 late, and my data, I used to have 2 gigabytes, and I would have used half a gigabyte in 10 minutes.
Oh my word.
That's how much it sucked it up. It really sucked up data, eaten data like there was no tomorrow. And when I went to AAC, because with the network I'm a part of, we've now gone to AAC, and that is now it just crunches. It crunches the amount of data you use. It doesn't swallow it up. It's so much easier to listen to, and it's a good quality. Like you say, it's a good quality, and I really do enjoy listening to AAC. AAC 10 years ago, no, it didn't exist. It did exist for things like VLC, music players and Windows and stuff like that. But on the net, it was kind of non-existent. It was more of an ASX for Windows Media Player, and stupid little flash players that you could never get to work on your BlackBerry phones and your Sony Ericssons, and it was just and it kind of makes me feel quite nostalgic looking back on it. But I'm so glad we are here now compared to where we were 10 years ago, technology-wise.
I totally agree with you. Absolutely. I mean, we're streaming on AAC Plus 96, and that's it. And nobody can really say that it's AAC. They're like, it must be higher and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think to the trained ear, you can still hear the difference, personally, for me, between MP3 and AAC. I can hear there's a bit of a difference. The AAC's got like a higher pitch or something to it. So I'm sure you can also hear it being in voiceovers and all that, in radio in general.
Absolutely. I mean, I do a lot of live sessions, and I remember there was a what we call a radio rookie just started, and they wanted me to do a voiceover for them a couple of weeks ago, and they were recording on this software we were using, a bit like what we used earlier, Eon, except the latency was horrible, and the quality of the call and stuff was even worse. And I was doing a voiceover, and he was actually recording my session from his end. And I said, no, I'll do it from my end, but you can obviously direct me on how you want things pronouncing, how you want things saying. That's the whole point of a live session. And he was like, oh, well, I never got my program controller never told me that. And I was like, well, your program controller is obviously a bit lazy and can't be bothered to do his job properly. I said, literally. And that's another thing about the eRadio voice. I'm very outspoken and very opinionated.
You are, but it's good. I mean, you should say things the way they are. You can't, beat around the bush, so to speak. Just what's
the point?
Say
what's the point in beating around the bush? Yeah,
and being in radio, you have to kind of be outspoken as well. Not always, but it helps. Yeah. You have to have an opinion.
Absolutely, and obviously within reason. I'd love to go on a talk radio station on a national network and give my opinion on Boris Johnson, but I could probably imagine getting the chop straight away. To be fair, but other than that, I think it's radio is a wonderful, wonderful medium. If you are considering becoming a presenter, do it because you will love it. You will never ever regret it. It's the most amazing thing you can ever do, and I can sit here and tell you about my career for the next 4 weeks non-stop talking, but I can't because I've got things to do.
But listen, a lot of people also think that radio is all glitz and glamour, but I mean, it is still hard work. We've had, over the past year, a lot of people wanting to be on eRadio and all that stuff. And, you kind of give them a chance, and they start off and they start out, and then they realize, hey, this is actually hard work. You do get a bit of a spotlight, but it's hard work, and then they kind of just fade away. And that kind of tells me that you're in it for the wrong reasons. But I mean, it is glamorous, yes, in a way, but it's still hard work. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, preparation, of course, being the big part of it. And it's not a question of just walking into the studio 5 minutes before the top of the hour and then just pushing buttons and talking crap for 3 hours.
Oh no, it's nothing like that. It's hard work, it's dedication, it's preparation, it's all about getting it right. You have to get it right. If you don't get it right and you irritate your program controller, he will turn around and he will say, "Get out of the building before you can say the station name now," because that's how it works. Yeah. The industry is very cruel. The industry is very similar to showbiz. It's very cruel. It's very it's quite tongue-in-cheek at times, which is good. But then again, it's very you can have a laugh, but then when the fun stops, and that's when the work starts. And the work is fun, but you have to do the prep first. The prep first, happen later. That's what it's all about. And to anybody that wants to consider pursuing a career, I would strongly suggest start right from the bottom. Start right from the bottom. Don't go in and start saying to people, "I've done this for 2 weeks and now I'm an expert," because you're not. Go in, learn the ropes, learn what the whole industry's about. Ask a lot. I mean, I've lost count of the many times I've asked questions to program directors, to MDs, to station managers. Everybody I've worked with have all said, "You ask too many questions," and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing whatsoever. You have to ask questions to get somewhere, and by asking questions, you make contacts. And in the radio industry, particularly, not so much, I don't know if it's so much in South Africa, but in the UK, it's not about what you know. It's not about how many degrees you've got. It's about who you know.
Absolutely.
You have to know the right people.
Absolutely.
You have to have the right contacts.
I've seen that, especially in the last year or two. It really helps to know people. It really, really helps to know people.
Absolutely, it does. And keep people on side. Keep people. Be friends with them. Ring them up. See how they are. If you've not spoken to them in 6 months, because you've been busy and you've had lots going on at your new job, never forget where you came from as well. There's another thing I would always say. There's a few people in the industry who've got egos the size of my house that completely forget about where they started out. And the fact that they were absolutely nobody before one person gave them a chance, and that's something you have to always take on board. Is never forget where you came from, and always remember the people that got you where you are.
Thank you. I really, really like that. That's so true. The funny thing is, the next thing I was actually going to ask you about is egos, and have you come across egos? But it seems to be a global thing when it comes to radio.
Do you know what I could go on about ego. I could name every single ego I know in the industry right now. I'm not going to because I'll get sued. But I know a lot of people in this industry who are in it just because they like to hear their own voice. They love to hear their own voice. They love to hear their own links. That some people I know actually will pre-record their show and then listen to their own show back, and I find that really irritating. Really irritating. And there's just certain things there's certain people that you need to kind of keep your distance from in the industry. Always have your wits about you. Always have your wits about you, because if you don't, you'll come across an idiot and you'll come across an ego, and they'll end up being the biggest narcissist you could ever meet. and you'll slowly start to think, why did I even bother coming into this industry? Stay away from the egos and you'll do well.
Absolutely. Some really good advice there from the eRadio voice. And if you still think it's a robot, then I don't have any hope for you, because today we really got to know.
I'm not a robot.
You're not. I'm not a robot.
Voice.
It's like that little box that you have to tick on websites saying I'm not a robot. I think you've passed the test today. He is totally human, but we're still keeping his identity secret. But no, it's not me, and no, with effects added, and it's definitely not a robot. I can tell you that much. It was great talking to you today. I know that a lot of people, including myself, want you to end off with one of our jingles. So
cool.
Would you end off maybe the entertainment radio on the go one at the end?
Of course. Right. When do I start?
You can go right now.
This is eRadio, entertainment radio on the go. I'm still a bit fluey from the other day because I lost my voice on Wednesday.
No, I heard it. That's it. It was spot on. I actually have my brother in studio with me now, and he was freaking out now because he instantly recognized it as the eRadio voice. It was so nice to talk to you today, and thank you for being part of eRadio. First of all, that's one thing I really want to say to you.
Pleasure. It's a real pleasure, Ian. Honestly, it really is.
And it's so nice. I mean, can I ask you a question? Just lastly, do you sometimes tune into eRadio to hear your own voice in between the songs, or just to kind of hear it?
I like to listen. I like the music because I'm a big fan of the music purely because it's very positive and it's very uplifting. And in living in a very negative, news-orientated, scaremongering world, it's quite challenging to get a station that makes you feel good. And I quite like listening to eRadio because it gives you information when you need it. It's entertainment radio on the go, and it's just it's an all-round good listen, and I like that. I like the whole positive feel around the station. I really do like that.
Oh, thank you so much, and what a pleasure to have you part of the project for the past year and for years to come, I hope. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And it was nice to get to know the person behind the voice, because there's always a person behind the voice. Not the robots. Absolutely. Not the robot. But yeah, once again, thank you so much. And thanks for being part of our birthday broadcast today as well. It's really much appreciated.
No problem at all. Happy first birthday, eRadio.
Yes, thank you, eRadio Voice, and to you as well, because you're part of it. Thank you so much.
No worries at all.